Have you ever talked to someone every single day, shared jokes, made plans, and then, almost overnight, they became a stranger? Their replies turned shorter. Their enthusiasm disappeared. The warmth you once felt suddenly became cold silence. No explanation, no warning, just distance. And the hardest part isn't always losing the person. It's never knowing why. Our minds naturally search for answers, replaying every conversation and analyzing every tiny detail, hoping to find the exact moment everything changed. But what if the real reason has less to do with one mistake and more to do with human psychology? Today, we're exploring why people suddenly become distant, what is happening inside their minds, and why understanding this behavior can completely change the way you see relationships. One of the biggest misconceptions is believing that people change overnight. In reality, emotional distance usually develops quietly, long before it becomes visible. Think of a crack in a wall. It doesn't appear in a single second. It forms slowly, almost invisibly, until one day everyone notices it. Relationships often work the same way. Small disappointments, unmet expectations, unspoken frustrations, or changing priorities accumulate beneath the surface. By the time someone seems cold, they've often been emotionally withdrawing for weeks or even months. Human beings constantly evaluate relationships without realizing it. Psychologists call this social exchange. Every interaction sends subtle signals about comfort, trust, effort, and emotional reward. When someone feels consistently misunderstood, ignored, overwhelmed, or emotionally exhausted, the brain begins protecting itself by reducing emotional investment. This isn't always a conscious decision. Sometimes people simply wake up one day, realizing they no longer feel what they used to. Another important factor is novelty. The human brain is naturally attracted to new experiences. During the beginning of many friendships and romantic relationships, dopamine creates excitement. Every conversation feels interesting because everything is unfamiliar. Over time, however, novelty fades. Healthy relationships replace excitement with deeper emotional connection. But when that deeper bond never develops, some people mistake the loss of excitement for the loss of feelings. They believe something is wrong, when in reality they're simply experiencing the normal transition from fascination to familiarity. Stress also changes people more than we realize. Imagine carrying invisible weight every day. Financial pressure, family problems, anxiety, work deadlines, or personal struggles. Emotional energy becomes limited. When survival mode activates, the brain starts prioritizing essential tasks, while social connection often moves to the background. Someone who suddenly becomes distant may not be rejecting you at all. They may simply lack the emotional resources to maintain the same level of connection they once had. Expectations play an equally powerful role. Every relationship exists within visible rules. Sometimes they're spoken, but more often they're completely silent. One person expects daily conversations, while the other prefers occasional contact. One expects emotional openness, while the other values independence. When expectations remain unspoken, disappointment quietly grows. Neither person believes they're doing anything wrong, yet both slowly feel less understood. Distance often begins not because of conflict, but because two different realities exist inside the same relationship. Then there's the psychology of familiarity. Ironically, the more available someone becomes, the less intentionally some people appreciate their presence. This doesn't happen because humans are cruel. It's partly due to a psychological tendency called hedonic adaptation. We quickly adapt to positive experiences until they become our new normal. The attention that once felt exciting eventually becomes expected. Gratitude fades, not because the relationship loses value, but because the brain stops noticing what has become routine. Of course, sometimes people become distant because they've changed themselves. We often assume that if someone pulls away, we must have caused it. Yet personal growth changes priorities, beliefs, ambitions, and identities. A person entering a new career, developing new interests, or recovering from difficult experiences may naturally drift away from relationships that once defined them. This isn't always betrayal. Sometimes it's simply evolution. Fear is another hidden force. Surprisingly, emotional closeness can frighten people more than loneliness. Individuals with avoidant attachment patterns often enjoy connection until vulnerability becomes too real. As intimacy grows, fear of dependence, rejection, or losing independence activates subconscious defense mechanisms. Instead of communicating these fears, they create emotional distance. To the other person, it appears random. Internally, however, it's often driven by anxiety rather than a lack of care. Miscommunication also deserves more attention than it usually receives. Human beings don't react to reality itself. They react to their interpretation of reality. A delayed reply might be seen as disrespect. A forgotten message might feel like rejection. A joke might accidentally sound insulting. Small misunderstandings can slowly reshape someone's perception until they begin believing the relationship no longer feels safe or rewarding. Ironically, many relationships don't end because of major betrayals. They slowly fade through countless tiny misunderstandings left unresolved. Social influence can also reshape emotions. Friends, family members, coworkers, and even social media constantly affect how people evaluate relationships. Sometimes someone begins questioning a friendship or romance only after hearing repeated opinions from others. Humans naturally seek belonging within groups, making outside influence surprisingly powerful. While we like believing our decisions are completely independent, psychology consistently shows that our environment quietly shapes our emotions more than we'd like to admit. One uncomfortable truth is that not everyone is capable of honest communication. Explaining emotional change requires vulnerability. It means risking conflict, disappointing someone, or admitting difficult feelings. Many people choose silence because it feels easier than honesty. They slowly reduce contact, hoping distance itself will deliver the message they don't have the courage to say aloud. While this behavior often creates confusion, it usually reflects their communication style rather than your worth. So what should you do when someone suddenly becomes cold? The instinctive response is often chasing answers. We send longer messages, ask repeated questions, replay conversations, and desperately search for reassurance. Yet psychologically, excessive pursuit often creates the opposite effect. When someone needs space, pressure can increase emotional resistance. This doesn't mean ignoring your feelings or pretending not to care. It means respecting both your own dignity and the other person's emotional process. Perhaps the most important lesson is recognizing that another person's distance does not automatically define your value. Human behavior is incredibly complex. Every person carries invisible fears, changing goals, unresolved trauma, hidden stress, and internal conflicts that others never see. Sometimes you are part of the reason they changed. Sometimes you aren't. And sometimes the truth is a combination of dozens of small psychological factors rather than one dramatic event. In the end, people rarely become cold in a single moment. What appears sudden is often the final chapter of a story that has been unfolding silently for a long time. Instead of asking only, why did they change? Perhaps the better question is, What can this teach me about human nature? Because understanding psychology isn't just about predicting others. It's about finding peace when their behavior doesn't make sense. The more you understand the hidden forces behind emotional distance, the less you'll blame yourself for every goodbye. And sometimes, accepting that not every relationship is meant to last becomes the first step toward building healthier, stronger, and more meaningful connections in the future.